Before most people knew the names of these children, the history of this family, or even the full extent of the evidence, we had already been given three images: the third world, feral animals, and livestock. Those phrases did more than describe what authorities say they discovered inside this home. They told the public how to understand it. They created victims, villains, and a moral conclusion before the case ever reached a jury. Hi, I'm Stina, and welcome to Motive and Method, where we look at the language, framing, contradictions, and patterns behind the headlines. Before we begin, I want to let you know that I'm not a psychologist or an attorney. I hold a bachelor's degree in communication with departmental honors, and I have more than 25 years of experience in professional writing and verbal communication. I approach these cases through the lens of language and framing, examining what is said, how it is said, what may be left unsaid, and the patterns that emerge. Today, we're talking about the Cers family case out of Vinton County, Ohio. Authorities removed 16 children from a home where they alleged the conditions were dangerous, unsanitary, and profoundly neglectful. Several adults have been charged, and this remains an active criminal case. Nothing I say today is meant to suggest that the alleged conditions were acceptable, or that poverty, isolation, or family dysfunction excuses serious neglect. But allegations are not convictions. And when government officials speak at a press conference, their words carry enormous authority. So, the question I want to ask is not simply whether the home was disturbing. The question is, did officials describe what they found, or did they begin deciding the meaning of what they found for the public? Being someone who studies communication and framing can really spoil a satisfying narrative. Everyone else hears pure evil, feral animals, and livestock, and understands immediately how they're supposed to feel. I hear these words and start asking who chose them, and what they may have prevented us from asking next. On Tuesday, June 30th, 2026, deputies from the Vinton County Sheriff's Office and agents with the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation executed court-authorized search warrants at a home on Omer Street in Hamden, Ohio, at approximately 10 o'clock that morning. Inside the residence, investigators located 16 children ranging in age from approximately 18 months to 18 years old. Authorities said the children were removed from the home and taken for medical evaluation, with some requiring higher-level hospital care. Court records also show that authorities had obtained an arrest warrant for Gary Cers Jr. on 4 misdemeanor public indecency charges related to alleged incidents at the residence in late May. That warrant was requested on June 29th and served the following day. Available reporting does not establish conclusively whether that investigation directly led to the child welfare search of the home. 4 adults, Gary Cers Jr., Elizabeth Cers, his wife, Gary Cers Sr., and Christina Cers, were arrested and later charged with 16 counts each of felony child endangering. All have pleaded not guilty. And while investigators were still processing the scene, while the children were still being medically evaluated, and before the defense had received discovery, officials began publicly describing what they believed they had found. Let's begin with the Attorney General's comparison to the third world.
It really looked third world. It's the type of thing that we're not used to seeing here in America.
This phrase performs a very specific communication function. It tells us that what occurred was not merely bad. It was foreign to ordinary American life, primitive, shocking, and outside what viewers were being told should exist in this country. But third world is not a measurable housing condition. It does not tell us the number of occupants, the medical condition of each child, the household's income, the plumbing situation, the family's access to services, or who was responsible for what. It is an image designed to produce immediate revulsion. It means that emotional impact arrived before context. Then came the phrase that may ultimately define this entire case.
It looked like almost feral animals. It was terrible. So,
now, to be fair, the Attorney General did say, almost like. That qualifier matters technically. Emotionally, however, the public hears one word: feral. And when applied to children, it carries an especially disturbing implication that these children had somehow been reduced below ordinary human life. Now, I understand what officials may have been trying to communicate. They may have been describing children who appeared socially isolated, developmentally delayed, medically neglected, frightened, or unfamiliar with ordinary routines. But those are specific conditions. Feral is a global identity. It takes individual children with different ages, abilities, experiences, personalities, and needs, and turns them into one shocking image. And I think we have to ask this: does calling children feral restore their humanity? Or does it use their apparent condition as evidence of someone else's monstrosity? And once that image is planted, who benefits from it? The children may receive sympathy, but the state also receives a ready-made moral case. The family is no longer merely accused. They have already been cast as monstrous. Because after that phrase enters the story, the children are no longer simply children who may have been failed. They become symbols. The Attorney General then called the county sheriff to the podium.
Livestock was kept in better conditions than the children. It was extremely high presence, I'm sure, of bacterial and human feces. It was just a disgusting scene.
Now, this is rural Ohio. It is entirely possible that the sheriff has direct knowledge of livestock care. I'm not going to sit here and pretend no one in Vinton County has ever seen a barn. But what precisely is being compared? Sanitation? Ventilation? Access to food and water? Available space? Medical care? Or is this primarily a rhetorical comparison intended to communicate horror? Because when we hear that animals were treated better than children, we are no longer just being told the conditions were unsanitary. We are being told that these children were placed beneath the community's minimum moral standard, even beneath the standard applied to animals. That is an extraordinarily powerful official message. And once that comparison is made, the accused adults are not merely negligent in the public imagination. They become inhuman. This is not only an abstract communication issue. A judge later imposed a gag order in the case after concerns were raised about public statements and the possibility of prejudicing the jury pool. A gag order may restrict what officials and attorneys say going forward, but it cannot erase what potential jurors have already heard. It cannot erase pure evil. It cannot erase feral animals. It cannot erase the comparison to livestock. By the time a court attempts to quiet the public messaging, the first version of the story may already have circulated through television, headlines, YouTube, Facebook, and conversations throughout the country. The court may be able to close the barn door. One could argue, though, that the most consequential language had already escaped. So, this video is not a defense of the condition authorities say they found. It is not an argument that poverty excuses neglect. And it is not a claim that Elizabeth Siders or any other defendant is innocent. It is an argument for precision. Children can be described as medically fragile, developmentally delayed, isolated, undereducated, frightened, or neglected. A home can be described with measurements, photographs, reports, and medical evidence. But feral, third world, livestock, and pure evil are not merely facts. They are frames. They tell us what emotions to feel, what conclusions to reach, and what possibilities to stop considering. The state framed this family as monstrous. But somewhere beneath those competing stories are 16 individual children and a body of evidence that has not yet been tested before a jury. And that is where our attention should remain. So, I want to know what you guys think. Did officials simply describe what they found? Or did their language go beyond description and begin shaping the verdict in the court of public opinion? Can language like feral ever help restore a child's humanity? Or does it reduce that child to evidence of someone else's monstrosity? And once words like pure evil enter the story, is it still possible for the public to evaluate the evidence with an open mind? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you found this analysis valuable, please like the video, subscribe to Motive and Method, and share it with someone who may want to look more closely at the language behind the headlines. Channel memberships are also open for anyone who would like to support the channel and take part in members-only posts, polls, and additional content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.